Another question for you. What are 3 tips for optimizing performance?
I think the 3 most important things to do when it comes to performance are, first of all, to quantify your metrics. It's not enough to say, oh, we want it to be performant, we want it to be fast, or we don't want it to be slow anymore. You have to decide what constitutes an acceptable level of performance. The second thing is you have to measure. A lot of engineers make the mistake of jumping in and going, oh, I know where the problem is, I'll fix it.
Yeah.
You know, they spend a long time improving the performance of something that turns out not to affect the user's actual.
And is the measurement, is it QA, is it in production, or both? And where do you measure?
Both. I mean, typically, when you're developing something, it isn't in production yet. So clearly, then you're measuring it in a pre-production kind of environment.
Okay.
But absolutely, you want to measure the real performance that people are experiencing in production.
Okay.
And you will be misled by your intuition. So you need to go off real hard numbers. So a lot of times, I remember one of the first performance issues I ever troubleshot. For example, I developed a new protocol that ran on top of UDP, and it was supposed to be faster than TCP/IP for this particular application, but it wasn't. And it turned out that my call to set the interval timer on a packet timeout was dominating the cycles that were being spent on the whole thing, and it was very easy to change that. But I would never have guessed that. I would never have thought that was
it wasn't intuitive.
Right. So there are a lot of things in performance that are counterintuitive, and also a lot of times you're not starting from a clean slate. A lot of times you have an app that is not performant and you're brought in to fix it. And I've been in several situations in the past where it's been hard to know where to start because it just seems like, well, everything's really slow. Well, okay, what do you do then? And traditionally engineers might go, well, what's the slowest server call? And you start working on that. But that may or may not actually be something that's causing a user-facing issue, or maybe something that's only infrequently causing a user-facing issue. So having a methodology to say, okay, what is it that is causing the users the most frustration, and then let's look at what are the biggest contributors to that, and knocking them off one by one is a huge time saver because it means that your engineering efforts are spent optimally. It means that what you're doing is having the highest impact that it possibly can on the experience that users are having.
Yeah, you're not chasing the wrong things. So number 1 is setting your targets. Number 2 is watching and seeing what the performance is, and then what's number 3? Number 3
is closely related to number 2, but it's continued monitoring. So in production, you need to keep looking and keep understanding what your performance is because it will change over time.
What might change it over time?
Right, there will be a new handset that gets introduced that has different characteristics. There'll be an OS update that introduces some different performance characteristics. There will be simply increased load. With success, comes sometimes some performance issues as well. So just as you scale, things change. Sometimes there's a new feature that has an unintended consequence and causes a performance issue.
Or a new developer maybe that is not maybe aware of the problems you
or one that should know better.
It's
it's really easy to alter the performance profile of an application. People do it inadvertently all the time, so you have to be continuously monitoring to make sure that things stay good once they are.
Okay.